Look, a lot of us are going to take to the skies throughout the summer, and as we have seen, with more airports and airlines experiencing staffing issues, flight cancellations and delays are becoming a lot more common. Sometimes that can make air travel stressful alone.
It's definitely a chore. Joining us right now is Brandon Blewett, best-selling author of How to Avoid Strangers on Airplanes.
Best title ever.
I know. He's a frequent flyer with million-miler status. He's seen it all. Brandon is here. You both have million-miler status.
We do. We're on a lot of planes, apparently.
We are.
That's it. First of all, where'd the title come from? I love the title.
So it was one of those that just sort of came to me after 15 years of traveling weekly. You have a lot of material, and there's a lot of habits that maybe you want to avoid. So it's actually a play on words. It's not necessarily strangers and other human beings, but what are some of the horrible habits that we see, and how do we avoid those?
All right, so what are the habits that annoy you, Brandon?
So I put them on a rotation because based on the flight, it depends on which one is the worst.
Okay.
Lately, I'm an aisle seat person, and people always complain that they think the TSA scanners are stripping personal data. I think it strips your spatial awareness, because if you have a large backpack on your back and you walk through the aisle and you turn, I have a hard time explaining to my HR department that this black eye is not due to a fight, it's actually due to somebody on a plane. So I think, walking through the aisle, taking your bag off, holding it in front of you is a good thing. Another one is the eager exiter, someone that's in row 24. I understand you want to stand up.
I resemble that remark.
Standing up to stretch, I totally get. Putting your bags in the aisle when someone in row 17 may need to go back to retrieve theirs. Just sort of.
What about the people who put their bags in the overhead? It seems like, first of all, everybody's got bags on overhead.
That's the thing. Yeah, it's like nobody checks in bags anymore, it seems
because they charge the fees, right?
Right.
Yeah. So everybody's got a bag, and they don't put it by their seat. Wherever they see an empty bin, on their way there, whether they're in that class or not, they're putting it in there, in the overhead.
To me, that's just the chaos of modern air travel. I think with the baggage fees and then with the boarding zones.
It's the reality of it. The
Right.
issue is, though, as you said, then someone else has to put their bag in the farther back.
Right.
So then it creates chaos when everybody's trying to get their bags to get off the plane.
Salmoning, when you have to go to the back of the plane to retrieve your bag.
What's the craziest thing you've ever seen on a plane?
How much time do we have? So in the book, I talk about the window wobbler, and that was an experience I'll never forget. Someone had a few too many pleasantries at the Vino Volo in Dulles Airport and made it onto the plane. But the craziest thing I've seen recently, there was a couple, and they have a baby stroller, and the gate agent is really confused why lap child isn't on their boarding pass. Well, it turns out the baby in the carriage was made of plastic. It was a doll, and they were using that to try to get pre-boarding status on the plane. I've never really wanted to be the first one on the plane that bad, but...
I've always said, as someone who doesn't have kids, I think people have kids so they can do pre-boarding. That's the only reason they want to do it.
I don't know if that's the only reason.
That's a good theory.
It's just a joke.
I don't know if that's the only reason.
All right, so seriously here, it's called How to Avoid Strangers on Planes. And you say it's not really about avoiding people, but it's about maybe understanding and empathizing in some cases.
Right. So the book centers on the 6 habits of highly annoying travelers, and what are those individual habits? Things like gate lice, crowding the gate, and then I draw parallels. My career started in professional services, so a lot of times you're traveling every week for work. So it was a bit cathartic to relate. How does professional development in your career journey also mirror air travel? There's delays, there's turbulence. Sometimes you think your flight's canceled, but there's going to be another flight, and maybe it's a little bit bumpy, but eventually you will get someplace that's really rewarding.
All right, give us some tips, please.
I think my biggest tip for summer travel is, 1, make sure you plan your sleep the night before. I think that when people are well rested, they're in a little bit better mood. 2nd, dress appropriately, and by that I mean pack in layers, because just because it's hot outside, it could be very cold in the terminal or on the plane, and vice versa. If you're hot and you're tired, that's when people get really cranky. And then 3rd, my mom always told me, you're not you when you're hungry, and so pack snacks, because a water bottle's $10 at the airport. Snacks are really expensive. If you're fed, rested, and you are dressed appropriately, I think it'll be a better experience.
All right, since we're sitting in coach,
yes.
Is there a way to shimmy out of the seat without putting your hands on
Yes, there is.
I didn't even finish, Brandon.
He knows it's coming. That's how you get a million miles.
So how do you do it?
So there's 2 armrests, and they're made of solid metal. You can easily pick yourself up and start to maneuver out of the seat that way.
Okay, let me ask you this then. Who gets the armrest when you're in the middle seat?
I think the middle seat should get both armrests, yes.
Both?
I think it's...
Well, this is a lot of fun.
The one thing you do mention in the book that I think is a good recommendation, too, for people that travel, if you can, that first flight out.
Yes.
It is golden.
Absolutely.
Because it's rarely delayed. When everything else gets delayed and backed up the rest of the day, usually you're able to get out, so that helps.
All the maintenance, all the crew issues can be solved overnight. So unless, until someone can control the weather, that is the best flight to take.
Very funny
All right.
and great advice also. Brandon blew it. Thank you. How to avoid strangers on airplanes.